Hey, what's up, guys? Happy Monday. Hopefully, you all had a good weekend. You guys are rested and ready for another day, or another week, excuse me, of online learning. It was really nice to see all you guys on Friday. If you guys didn't make it to the Zoom session last week, please try to make it this Friday. We're going to do it the same thing. It was really nice to check in with you guys to see what's going on, see what you guys are doing at home, seeing what's working, what's not working for you guys. Also, if you have questions, feel free to keep messaging us or messaging me and your other teacher as well. Okay. So today, if you notice, I am in the clouds. Just wanted to give you a quick update. So I know we've been talking a lot about the negative things about the coronavirus, but we can also start thinking about the positive things. One thing that I want to tell you guys is that even though the coronavirus is keeping us at home and we're bored and we have nothing to do, there's some positive things, like from the Zoom sessions, you guys are able to stay home, hang out with your families, which is really cool. You guys are having more time to yourselves. I'm really happy to hear that the meditation went really well for you guys, and that you guys felt at peace. And it was time after that you guys kind of stopped worrying about your homework and you guys were able to have a good day. So that's something nice. You guys have more time to yourself. Another positive thing is that if you haven't noticed, the environment's changing, the climate's changing. It's been a lot more cleaner outside. The air is nicer. The clouds, like if you can see back here, are like that. It's reported that in China, they can actually see blue skies, and they haven't seen blue skies in a really long time. And they showed like satellite images. The pollution is going down. The rivers in Greece, you can actually see through the rivers and see the bottom of the floor now. In Venice, the canals in Italy, you can actually, the water that flows through the city is not green anymore, it's actually clear. So those are some benefits of the coronavirus, with not a lot of people out there polluting in the factories and everything closed. So that's something that we have to look up to. Speaking of which, I do have a message though, a special guest, and you guys are gonna like this one. Hold on. So that was kind of cool. The Earth gave us a little shout out. Yeah, so just take this time, go outside for a little bit, get some fresh air, start to do things that you don't normally have to do. Pick up a new hobby, draw, paint, make some music, anything that makes you happy during these times. So take advantage of it and think of the positive side. Okay. So I'll check back in with you guys tomorrow. But let's go ahead and let's jump into review and get into the lesson for today. See ya. Alright, so last time we met, we talked about the Black Death. And the Black Death is kind of ironic because it's very similar to the coronavirus that's going on. This Black Death, it was a plague. It swept through all of Europe, Asia, Africa, and Europe had the worst effect of it. It wiped out about a third or 50 million people in their population. And this was horrible because it spread through the trade, it spread through the Silk Road, believed to have gotten to the Mediterranean Sea. And then once it got to the Mediterranean Sea, we all know that that's the trading mecca. And when everyone started to trade back and forth, everyone got infected by that. One thing that it was significant, or why it was important, was that it wiped out a lot of the population and the manor system started to fall apart. So just like now, how kind of like businesses are going out or everyone's staying home, so businesses are closing, that's exactly what happened over there, except these people were dying in Europe. So there were no businesses, the manor system was gone, so certain people were alive and these people were getting paid a lot of money to do their jobs. But it hurt a lot because a lot of things that people were good at were no longer alive. So it hurt their economy, and it took a really long time for Europe to come back from this. So that was a little bit about the Black Death. If you have questions about that still, you can still just ask me or send me a message. But today we're going to talk about something different. We're going to talk about how the church, we're going back to the church and the government, and how the government started to change and people start to look differently at the church. And we're also going to talk about a little battle today about in Spain and in Portugal. So we're kind of leaving the Black Death and we're going to something else. So let's get to it. But before I start, let's just review your homework. A lot of you guys did the homework perfect. You guys got them all right. But let's just review for everybody else. So number one, the effects of the bubonic plague. It wiped out a third of the population, 50 million people. It was horrible. And pretty much the manor systems and the economy pretty much collapsed. Number two, where in Europe did the Black Plague first appear? So the Black Death, it first appeared, in England and it came from Eastern Asia. And when they came over, it spread very quickly, and pretty much everyone in England died, and other people also died as well. Number 3, why do you think the Black Death was able to spread so quickly? It was able to spread so quickly because it was highly contagious. It was through the air. A lot of these people were pretty much no cure for these people. It was able to spread quickly because everyone was highly contagious, and you can die within a day. So it was airborne. It was all over. And another thing is that it's all these people were dying, and there was not a lot of people to pick up all these dead bodies. So that's another reason why I was able to spread so quick, because all these people were still there with the disease. So now we're gonna move on from the Black Death. So today we're gonna talk about the challenges to the church authority. And here we go, Natalia, for the objective. Today we are going to be able to explain how these new Christian kingdoms came to power and how they took out a lot of the Muslim kingdoms. So that's going to be your objective for today. Just to warn you, today we do have a lot of slides, but we'll get through them fairly quickly. So just bear with me. So most Europeans in the Middle Ages belonged to the Catholic Church. As Christianity spread in Europe, many Jews and Muslims were pressured to become Christians or even leave their homes. At this time, others openly challenged the church's authority. So most people were Christian, most people were Catholic, but there were still a lot of Muslims, and people were starting to challenge each other and not really get along, and we're going to see another war, which we'll talk about today. So starting in the 1100s, some of these Christians, they began to question the church and their teachings. Like we've talked about in the past, the church, they were really focused on money, wealth, gaining more land, and a lot of people saw this as them just being greedy and them forgetting what they were really supposed to do, which was guiding the church, teaching them lessons, and not to worry about the politics. So because of this, a lot of these Christians, they began to start teaching different things. They started to teach what they thought was right, and they started to go against the church. And we know when the people go against the church, they're taking the risk of being excommunicated. So all these people, when they started to do this, they started to teach things that weren't agreed or accepted by the church. And what this was they called this a heresy. So a heresy, like it says right there, a heresy is any religious ideas that are opposed to accepted church teaching. So pretty much if the church said we should love God, and a heresy says no, we shouldn't love God, then that would be something that goes against the church, and that would be wrong. So a heresy was any teachings that went against the church. And a lot of these teachings started to pop up because no one was agreeing with the church, and they didn't like the way the church was acting. The people that followed these heresies were called heretics, just like how we're called Catholics if we follow Catholicism, you're called Buddhists if you follow Buddhism. If you followed these heresies, you were called heretics, and these were people who believed these false teachings of the church. So in order for them to stop all this, the church, they sent out these priests, and they sent out friars, and what they did was they pretty much sent them out there to go and catch these heretics or these people teaching these heresies, and they wanted to fine them, punish them, imprison them, and even sometimes kill. So in the early 1200s, the Pope at the time, his name was Pope Innocent III, he decided that we needed to call a crusade against these heretics in southern France. He saw this as a problem. Like, there's way too many people going against the church. We need to cut this out before other things start to happen. Because remember, if they saw people rebelling, they could start a huge revolution, a huge rebellion, and a huge war. And Pope Innocent did not want that to happen. So instead, he calls a war against these heresies. And pretty much what happened was they would go out these crusades, the people that were, remember, sent by God, they can keep anything that they wanted, so a lot of kings and nobles went. They went on these crusades to find all these people that are teaching false things about God in France. And because of this, they started a huge war, and it lasted about 20 years. This was a very bloody war. It was ruthless. This is why a lot of these wars that the church put on weren't really because of God. They were really out there to just kill and take over, which was really bad. And the whole point, remember, the whole reason why they sent out on these wars was to shut down these heretics, because it could lead to other people questioning church and could lead to a bigger war or even a bigger rebellion. So France was not the only place where Christians fought people that they saw were the church's enemies. In Spain and Portugal, a lot of these Christian warriors also fight to drive out these people called the Muslim Moors out of the land. So what was going on was, by the late 900s, the once powerful Muslim government of Spain had begun to weaken. So political and religious leaders began to fight each other for power. These different ethnic groups also started to fight. So everybody in these Muslim areas were fighting for power because they just couldn't stand it. So they were trying to take each other out. In 1000, in year 2, the Muslim government fell apart completely. And because of this, they were so caught up with fighting amongst themselves that these Muslim leaders were too busy to worry about the Christians. So this is when the Christians in northern Spain decided, you know what, this is our perfect time to go and attack the Muslim government because they are weak, they're fighting against themselves, and they don't know what's going to come at them. So these Christians are going to start to fight against the Muslims in Spain. So as the Moorish powers declined, small Christian kingdoms began to go in attack. So for centuries, the kingdoms in northern Spain have been very small and weak, but the Moorish powers were declining, and these little Christian kingdoms decided to seize the opportunity and to attack. Slowly but surely, they started to take away these lands from the Moors because they're too busy fighting with themselves, and they called all these efforts to take Spain back from the Muslims a Reconquista. Okay, so the Reconquista is also known as the Request, and they wanted to take all of Spain back from the Muslims. So same thing, very similar to the First Crusades, take the Holy Land back. Now they're going to take their Christian land back from the Muslims. In 1085, Castile, the largest of the Spanish kingdoms, won their first great victory against the Moors. This Castilian victory inspired other Christian kingdoms to fight against the Moors. And the two kingdoms of Aragon and Portugal soon joined to fight the war. And the Christian armies, now that they're winning victory after victory, they're on a roll now. By 1250, these Christian armies had nearly pushed out all the Muslims completely out of Europe. And the only territory that was left was this little small area called Granada. But since it was mostly all Catholics and Christians in Spain now, they are definitely going to go and attack Granada. So here, as the Moors' power started declining, these Christian kingdoms took advantage of it, and they started this thing called the Reconquista, where they wanted to take back all the Holy Land, and they wanted to make it all Christian once again. So as a result of their victories, both Spain and Portugal, they became a lot more powerful because they were gaining so much land, and now they're all Christian. Portugal was once part of this Castile. They broke free and they became independent. So this is when Portugal finally became an independent country. And then, meanwhile, Castile and Aragon, these two kingdoms, they decided to unite with each other. In 1469, Ferdinand, the Prince of Aragon, married Isabel, a Castilian princess. 10 years later, they became the king and the queen of their countries, and together they ruled all of Spain as King Ferdinand and Queen Isabel, as you can see them right there. Ferdinand and Isabel finally brought an end to the Reconquista when in 1492 their army actually did conquer Granada, and this pretty much ended all these wars, or it ended that war. That same year, they required all Spanish Jews to convert to Christianity or leave. So anybody that they found that was a Jew, they would either tell them to turn to Christianity or leave. And when they did this, it started to upset a lot of people, which we'll see a little bit later. A few years later, they also started to ban all the practices of Islam, or they banned all Muslims from practicing Muslim in their country. So they became really strict. They took over and said, we're not going to let this happen ever again. Everyone's Christian. If you don't want to be Christian, then you can leave. So because King Ferdinand and Queen Isabel only wanted Christians in their kingdom, and they wanted everybody else gone or banned or converted, they decided to come up with this new idea, and this was their plan. It was called the Spanish Inquisition, and pretty much what this was an organization of priests that looked for and punished non-Christians in Spain and Portugal. But the way they did it was extremely brutal. What they would do is they would go door to door and they would try to find Jewish people, they would try to find Muslims, and if you were, they would drag you out and take you into the middle of public, almost in like a forum. And they would ask you, are you a Christian or are you not? And they would torture you, they would threaten you until you would say you were, and if not, If you were found guilty, what they would do was they would just burn you right there on the spot or kill you in front of all these people. And the reason why they wanted to do this was they wanted to send messages letting people know that they're not messing around, they're not playing, and that we're just gonna burn and kill you in front of all these people. What's crazy is that these people that were doing all these punishments and killing all these people were actually priests. And this is kind of ironic because they're supposed to be holy and teaching us the right way, but during this time of in Spain, they were murderers. They were just killing a bunch of people that were non-Christian. And the whole reason why they did this was because the king and the queen wanted to make sure that everyone was Catholic in Spain. So while they were burning all these people, in a matter of a few years, what they did was they killed over 2,000 people were killed in Spain, and over 1,400 were killed in Portugal. And because of this, a lot of these other religions were either gone from Spain, or they were captured, or they were killed because of this, which was pretty crazy. So as a quick review, in Europe, we started to see all these people challenging the church. We saw these people going against the church because they didn't agree with what the church was doing. They thought the church was too involved with money and power and land, and they forgot what the church was doing. Because of this, a lot of these people started to come up with their own religions or interpretations of Christianity, and they began to practice their own religions, which was called a heresy, any religion that was against the Catholic faith. And the people that followed them were heretics. Because of this, the Pope issued all these people to be captured, imprisoned, killed, or gotten rid of, because he didn't like that if all these other kingdoms started to pop up and we go against the church, it might leave a message for other people that they can go ahead and go against the church. So in Spain, what they did, Pope Innocent, he launches this thing called the Spanish Reconquista. And pretty much what he's doing was he saw the powers of the more kingdoms declining because they were too busy fighting themselves, and decided this was the perfect time for us to attack. So what they did was they went out to these Muslim worlds or kingdoms, and they began to conquer them and try to convert everybody. Eventually, all of Spain was brought back to Christianity, and Jewish people were either converted or banned, and Islam people were killed pretty much. The king and the queen, King Ferdinand and Queen Isabel, they took it to another level once they got in charge of all Spain, and they decided that we're going to go ahead and launch this thing called Spanish Inquisition, where we're going to send out all these priests and we're going to torture all these people that are heretics and going against the church in public to send a message to everybody that this is the church and you shouldn't mess with us. And when they did this, they killed close to 4,000 people that were against Christianity or that didn't get converted. So what they did was they ensured that all of Spain was only going to be Catholic. And the only reason why they were able to do this was because, first, people were going against the church. Second, the Muslim kingdoms were fighting against themselves, and they weakened themselves and allowed the church to come in and take over. So for homework, I want you guys to answer these questions. Number 1, what is a heresy? Number 2, what was the purpose of the Spanish Inquisition? This is the one where King Ferdinand and Queen Isabel sent this out. And number 3, how did the Reconquista affect the Spanish Jews and the Muslims? So think about that. Go ahead and drop it in the homework. Once again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to let me know, and I can go ahead and answer them for you. If you have any questions, let me know. If not, see you guys all tomorrow.